Hi, I'm Rick Berrott. I teach at Plum High School, and this is DingoTalk.
What's going on, Chuckleheads? I am Carlo Guadagnino. This is Dingo Talk. My guest this week is Rick Berrott, TV and Media Relations, I guess, at Plum, right?
Teacher,
The production.
yes.
So, and Mr. Berrott and I, we go back a little bit. 2010 to 2006, maybe, I think, is when I
Yeah,
got.
when did you graduate? The year starts to
2010.
blur.
So it's
Yeah,
we were the class that didn't have a 10-year reunion because we had a pandemic instead. So
yeah, no, that's correct. Well, Carla, we go back a little further. I was just telling my wife and my sons, because your grandfather and my dad were in the carpet business. They worked at Sears together. So I've known of you. And then when I saw on my roster Guadagnino, I called my dad. And then when I saw Sal, I'm like, your dad's Butch, right? Oh, yeah.
No, my dad's Frank.
Yeah. We always said Butch.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But so what we do every week is we talk about how you got to where you are. So 1987,
Okay.
born and raised in Plum, graduated from Plum. Why the
Yes.
decision to go to Pitt?
Honestly, I was accepted to Penn State and IUP, and Pitt was the closest. And didn't know I wanted to be a teacher at that time. I wanted to do something in communications, English, business. And if you drive to Penn State right now, Penn State's 2.5 hours. There was no highways like that back in the 80s. You went on back roads. So Penn State was more like 3 hours away. IUP was an hour. I'm like, I'll just go to Pitt.
Now, you went to Pitt, as you got there at first, you were undecided and then leaned into more English, right?
Yes, and my degrees in English Lit and communications. I had business classes there. I liked them, but and I tutored. You're going to laugh at this. I tutored up through calculus and math. That was one of my jobs there. And then the education thing was a thing my sophomore year, and I'm like, oh, I think I'll be a math teacher. And actually, one of my buddies in my fraternity was in calculus 4, and they were researching problems for hours to figure out how to solve them. And I kept on asking him, well, how does that help you teach algebra to like 8th, 9th, 10th graders? And he's like, it doesn't. And I'm like, well, I like public speaking. I'm okay in English. So I'm going to steer towards the English way. And after I graduated from Pitt, I went to Robert Morris for 1.5 years. It was called Robert Morris College at the time. It's now Robert Morris University. And we were actually the guinea pig class. We were the second class to go through Robert Morris to get certified in English and communications.
Okay. Well, so while we have you in your college years, you said you were in a fraternity. Was that something when you came out, when you got to college, was that always something in your head that I want to be a part of Greek life, and why?
You know what? My true story, my second semester freshman year, I was in a developmental psych class, and there was a kid in the Sigma Alpha Mu fraternity. It's just a nice guy, and we were hanging out with him. And my beginning of my sophomore year, I wasn't one of these guys. Freshman year, I'm gonna go pledge this fraternity. Hey, Greek life, whatever. He was such a nice guy. I went beginning of my sophomore year. I'm like, I want to pledge Sigma Alpha Mu, and I went around to, Pitt has a ton of fraternities. I went around to a lot of the other fraternities. Actually, the SAMI, Sigma Alpha Mu, is the only one that said, hey, go look at this fraternity and go look at this fraternity. The other fraternities were like, hey, stay with us. And I was like, you know what? You learn as you grow up, always be nice to others and stuff. And that kind of struck a chord with me. They were like, hey, go look at other fraternities. And I was like, huh. And, I joined, had a great time fraternity life wise. Learned a lot, but it was also a time when I went to Robert Morris. It was time to, my fraternity brothers graduated from Pitt. They're, engineers in the business world. I wanted to teach. So it was time that, okay, I'm going to go to Robert Morris and I'm going to get my education and I want to be a teacher.
So, and you graduate from Pitt in 91, Robert Morris the following year, 92?
A year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a year and a half. So 92, I think.
And
Wait,
then,
91, 92. Yeah, the end of 92.
so then when you come out of Robert Morris, do you go directly to Plum, or how do you
Yeah, I
proceed into your teaching career?
started off as a day-to-day sub. I was subbing at Plum, a couple other schools, and I was interviewed and got hired for a year in 93, 94 at Moon High School. I taught public speaking and TV productions. It was great there, made to drive, learned a lot, rush hour traffic driving, because I lived in Plum with my parents, out of school, you know how it is,
Yep.
hard to make ends meet. So, I learned, hey, if I leave at 6 a.m., I can pretty much beat the rush hour traffic gutting through the Squirrel Hill tunnels, Fort Pitt tunnels.
Oh,
I worked a year at Moon High School, did more day-to-day sub work. And then in 95, I got hired to teach a couple English sabbaticals at Plum.
mhm.
And it was weird being back there because it'd be like you coming back to teach at Plum. Like, yeah, I mean, we'd hang out and stuff, but you still say Mr. Berrott. It's okay to call me Rick, but here I am teaching at Plum, and I'm like, hey, Mrs. Radicay, Mr. Kearns, and they're like, call me Connie. And I'm like,
No.
yeah, that's gonna be tough,
Yeah.
And so I did a couple sabbaticals, and then Plum actually started TV production classes in 96. And the
Mhm.
gentleman that took them, Frank Muta, took a tech position at Franklin. And I tell
Okay.
everyone, Carlo, I was real lucky. I was in the right place at the right time. I had the TV experience from Moon. It was a part of my major. I was the
Mhm.
fresh face in the building. And in 96, I just slid right in, and I was the new TV production teacher, air quotes there, at Plum High School.
Now, what were those early years like? Did you want to hit the ground running? Like, I know you cover the basketball games, the football games, the
Yeah.
baseball games. 96, 97, it's different than it is now. You're not just so
Yeah,
what was the
like,
first years like?
yeah, I mean, we had a good time. We did a lot. We competed in a TVT contest at Robert Morris, did really well. A lot of publicity to the district.
Mhm.
We filmed on something called SVHS, which is like a better version of VHS. So, like, if I need to make a copy for you and I filmed on SVHS, your copy you'd put in your VCR and it'd be crystal clear.
Mhm.
But I mean, crystal clear at the time. Now, my kids watch it and they're like, "Oh God, that's awful. It's not even HD," But it was good. I mean, that's how it was. We did daily announcements.
Mhm.
We competed in TVT. We started to do a little play-by-play for the football games, wrestling, basketball, and we were plodding along, honestly, until 1999. One of the gentleman that I knew, his name was Doug Martin over at Fox Chapel. They were getting ready for their 10th annual Make-A-Wish Telethon. And Fox Chapel does it way differently than we do it. They had the capabilities in the mid 90s to go live to every elementary building, junior high, well, middle school and high
Mhm.
school. They collected no money until the day of the telethon.
Wow.
And they would have these huge fish bowls, and they would go and move and just cut live from building to building, and people would come up and donate money. And I'm like, boy, we can't do that. I'm
Mm-mm.
like, this sounds like a neat idea. I'd love to do this at Plum. Got involved with the National Honor Society. And then, that fall of 99, we started our first annual Make-A-Wish Telethon.
Well, and now going on 22 years later, you guys the Make-A-Wish Telethon just passed a million this
Yes,
past December.
correct.
What goes in? Because I know when you start the planning, it's April or March of the previous school year for the following school year. What goes into all of the? Because I know that you guys just had the car wash, the Make-A-Wish
Yeah,
car
we just had
wash
a
was.
car wash. We made almost $1,000 yesterday, so which was outstanding. With the NHS kids, we'll start to fundraise, and the schools will do little things in September, October-ish, and then middle of October, the TV kids now, we really amp it up. And, Carlo, it's funny, as you know, being a student through the Plum Borough School District, as November turns into December, your classes, hey, it's Christmas time, it's the holidays, we take it easier. We just glide right into the Christmas break. I mean, you've been a part of the process, so this is our Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Like, we amp it up big time. Like, we're there till 5, 6 o'clock leading up to it. Now we're there at 5 a.m. We do one more run through the day of the telethon, and we live stream it. And I think last year we were all there at like 4:45 in the morning, and a bunch of us were walking out at 7 p.m. But yeah, I mean, we plan it to a T, and it's hard because we have a lot of special guest stars, like whether it's Rick Dayton from KDKA Radio, Mike Clark's been he comes every year from WTAE. We've had Selena Pompiani. We've had, like Chris Mahler from 93.7, the band comes. Dan Kongursky, we've become good friends with, who does Pittsburgh hockey now. And he just has the domain now for the Steelers and Pirate baseball. So, we try to give these guys times to come, and we kind of guesstimate, hey, if Carlo and DingoTalk's coming at 10 a.m., this year, hey, I'll say, hey, Carlo, come around 9:30, 9:40. Now you'll come earlier just to hang out a little bit and do whatever, but, we try to keep it on time, among, interviewing other high school students, the principals, school board members, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I mean, we went last year, I think 7 hours live, which, I mean, if you think about it, Carlo, that's insane, because it's Rick Berrott and 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. Now, Carlo, you're a good student, but, we also have students that, hey, I'm just in this class just to graduate. So to try to get everyone involved, and, money's coming in. And, we had a year that Rick Dayton, when he worked for KDKA TV, there's someone got sick, and he was supposed to, he did at the time the morning news. So he's like, hey, I should be done by 10. Can you get me on at 11? I'm like, absolutely. He was told, hey, I got to do the noon news. So now, like, we're trying to fill in gaps and then squeeze him in later, and not, shuffle all the time. So it gets harder. And then it's not just the high school, because as you know, we're filming it. Now it's O Block Elementary, it was Center Elementary, Pivot Elementary, Holiday Park Middle School, the junior high. We try to make 10 to 12 to 15-minute highlight videos, because they're fundraising $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. So, as October is morphing into November and December, we want to give the other buildings their due respect, because it's not just Rick Berrott in the high school that's raising, this past year we raised $73,000. Now the high school brought in close to 30, but the other buildings are bringing in money. And, a lot of people come in that day. We became friends because of James Edwards, who graduated from Plum, Eddie Edwards, and his dad, Eddie Edwards Senior, who used to run WPTT Channel 22. Like, he'll come in and say, hey, here's, $500 for Make-A-Wish, and it's just like, holy heck.
Yeah.
And so, a number just keeps on going up and up and up. And now it's become a tradition. Like, we're the #1 fundraising school district for Make-A-Wish in the world. But, that's nice to say,
but it's more what you're doing than it's great to have the accolade there, but it's more or less, it's become a staple of what the district is Make-A-Wish comes around that last day of school. That for the whole day, Channel 14 is going to have, or it might not be Channel 14 anymore, but the Plum station is going to have
Channel 30 and 23. But yeah, we live stream it now right on the school district website. So, but yeah, that tells you how different it was. It was when I had you, we weren't live. Like, we would tape it, and parents and hey, how much did they raise? How much did they raise? Former students would email me, or if they had my cell phone number at the time, Mr. Berrott, what'd you guys do this year? Because then we'd get on the radio and wish 99.7, hey, we raised this amount of money. But now we live stream it, and a lot of people know, like, hey, when's that telethon? It's always around Christmas. We want to know. And it's become a staple of the community. The life lessons, I've said it several times. It's like the circle of life. Like, Make-A-Wish wins at the end. We're raising a bunch of money for them, and it's always nice to give back. And honestly, Carlo, any wish that's come out of Plum since 99, we have sponsored. So
Yeah.
we've taken care of our own first, and that's first and foremost. Going through that process, when you went through it, and a lot of other students, whether it was Pat McAfee, Pat Muldowney, Steve Fabian in Inside Edition still says, it's on his resume, and he's been in Inside Edition for over a decade. He was a host of the second annual Make-A-Wish Telethon at Plum. If you're getting into this field, it's obviously great. It's a good experience. So, there's too many positives that go with it. It's a long day, and I wouldn't not do it. I mean, I love doing it. It's a long day, and it's fun also. And, being through that day goes so fast. Like, my students afterwards are like you don't even hear the bells. Like, dismissed, like, hey, it's 10 o'clock. Lunch is at 11. So Chris Mahler's coming in. Bubba and Mel from 100.7 is coming in. We got to pie the teachers. Who's getting the pies? Like, it's,
you're moving at such a rate that by the end of the day, you're waiting for that last bit of what we would shoot. But by the end of the day, you're sitting there going, whew, that was a day. But you don't realize how quickly that you're there in the morning, and then all of a sudden it is 3, 4, 5 o'clock.
I had a student that broke down and cried as we're getting ready to go on a couple years ago, because she told me, as the balloon drops getting ready to go up, in front of us, she started to cry. And the students like, Mr. Berrott, 2 minutes to go, minute and a half. And she's crying. I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, I've always wanted to do this, and I can't believe this day went so fast. And 1 minute to go. And I'm like, okay. Okay,
calm down.
Talk about it later. Let's get it together for the last interview, Yeah.
So let me ask you, so 28 years now teaching, this will be the 22nd year of the Make-A-Wish Telethon.
Correct.
Are there any thoughts for you on your side of, are you looking towards retirement? And when you retire, is there a plan in place to keep this still going after Mr. Berrott is no longer the guy that's pulling the strings?
Well, I'm not going to retire anytime soon. My youngest is going into 9th grade. So I'm going to be there for at least 4 more years. What we've done, and Mr. Magnuson being the other co-sponsor of the National Honor Society, like a wish now, when you were there, was $3,400. A wish now is $4,400. If we don't have enough money to meet a wish, we've sponsored the newsletter before. With Make-A-Wish, we've also helped purchase toys for they have a huge toy cabinet. So, for example, if a family has someone that has a wish for the other siblings, so they don't feel left out, they have these 2 huge doors you open up in their office, and they'll have, whether back in, 10 years ago, Game Boys, or, Xbox Ones, or, remote control cars. They have other toys for the students or for the children. And, we've purchased those. We've also put money into an endowment fund, and that endowment fund collects $4,400 of interest a year. So when I'm in the old age home with you, and we're probably betting on the Penguins or Steelers or whatever, Plum will still forever and ever sponsor at least 1 wish a year, which is really huge. Whatever happens when I retire, who knows? But I'm glad that that's my landmark. Like, a lot of people have said, hey, you've had viral videos, the Penguin lip dub videos, and they've been great to make.
I was coming up to that.
No, it's fine. I don't want to steal your thunder, but the Make-A-Wish, to sponsor a wish every year, that's a big deal, I think.
So. Well, and the fact of the matter being that Plum takes care of its own. Every wish that's come out of the Plum community has been sponsored by Plum Borough and the school district, and that shows the community and what it is for what the Make-A-Wish Telethon is for the entire community, and not just the school and the students.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, agreed.
So you brought up the lip dub. And I remember that day very well. I still can. There's a song that I got a feeling I can't listen to ever again, because I just see it, I hear it. Sometimes I hear it in my sleep. I mean,
oh, man, me too.
How did the lip dub idea? When did you guys? I think it was you, Zach Duke, or Ryan Duke, Chelsea Magnuson, I remember being involved in it. How did that all come about?
That started after, we did our telethon. We're talking, what was that?
Oh, nine.
4 or 5, was it 09?
Oh, nine. Because
Oh,
we do
09, so
we do the 10. It's the spring is the
no,
first
that's
one.
right. And so I had a real good bunch of kids that year. What should we do? What should we do? And lip dubs, again, air quotes, were becoming, there was a couple on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked my students, hey, is this something you want to do? Yeah, yeah. And I'm like, hey, like, people, we go around the school, we wear their sports jerseys, whatever. And so there was a group in Canada that did the song, I Got a Feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And the song I kept on hearing, the chorus, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it. True story, Carla, you're going to make fun of me now. And maybe all 3 million of your viewers that watch DingoTalk. But I jog every morning since Parker was born in 07. He didn't sleep through the night. And, my wife and I would just crash after school, take power naps because we were up at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. So I still do to this day. I jog every morning from like 5:45 to 6:30. So as I'm jogging in the morning and a song came on the radio, and I'm listening to it, let's do it, let's do it. And, I'm a huge Penguin fan. I have season tickets. The Pens blog website, when the Penguins were ready to acquire Marian Hossa, came up with this phrase, let's do it, let's do it. And so as I'm listening to the song that morning and I hear, let's do it, the world's kind of combined. And I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe we should do, because no one's ever done one for a team. Let's do a Pittsburgh Penguins lip dub. And I asked the students, they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And we're like, well, we can't do that song. Let's try to figure out another song. Nothing was working. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just do the I Got a Feeling song. It's hugely popular at the time. And the students were like, okay. And so there was maybe 80, 90 of us. We came up on a Monday and a Wednesday to practice. And then Friday night was the big filming day. Now, lip dubs are beyond the point of popular, probably phased out now a little bit, but a lot of schools, universities do them. They cut the camera. The true meaning of lip dub, no, steady shot, solid, straight through, don't stop recording. And we did it. And our goal was, at the time, we would laugh, hey, maybe the Pens blog will put it on their website. And that was it. So, we posted on YouTube that following Monday or Tuesday. I think the Pens blog Wednesday put it on. And then my wife goes, hey, you're friends with Mike Clark. He always comes out to the telethon from WTAE. Why don't you call him and say, hey? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't want to toot my own horn. She's like, I don't know. Like, do it for the students. I'm like, okay. So I called Mike Thursday night and I said, hey, and he's working. It was after the 6 o'clock news and he's getting ready to do the 11 o'clock news. I said, hey, I think I have a story for you. And he goes, hey, hold on, Rick. I'm going to go down to the newsroom. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I'm on hold 3, 4, 5 minutes. I'm like, I was ready to hang up. And he picks up the phone. He's like, Rick, you there? And I'm like, yeah, I'm here. He goes, listen. And he turned the phone towards the newsroom. And I can hear the Black Eyed Peas song playing. And he goes, we're running with it Friday morning. We are so thrilled. And so, Friday morning I get up. It's one of the few mornings I didn't jog that day. And I think it was Kelly Fry and I can't remember the other lady did the morning news. And they didn't play like 10, 15 seconds of it. I mean, they played 2-3 minute, and it was all morning. And so now,
I remember the leading up to that, and then after they did it, we came in almost every day and we're like, oh, how many views could it have gotten?
Yeah,
and
it was like views, check the views.
1,000, 5,000, 10,000, and it just kept going.
Yeah, and I mean, I think right now it's probably pushing 400,000 or 500,000 views, but it went viral after WTE did it. And then that following Monday, I get a call from the NHL network on Sirius Satellite Radio. They want to interview me. and it just took like everyone played like, hey, this, this high school's playing this, did this video about their sports team. And then I became friends with Tom McMillan, who he just retired. He was the vice president of the Pittsburgh Penguins, one of the vice presidents. He called me when they were in the Montreal airport for the playoffs, and he's like, "Can we play this?" I'm like, "Yes." He's like, "I'm sorry, I'm huffing and puffing. We're racing through the Montreal airport." I'm like, "Yeah, do what you need to do. That's fine." And so it became popular. And then they're interviewing like Penguin players, are like, "Yeah, I like when Sam, I can't remember his last name, Sam Prokopic came out of the garbage can and jumped at." Like, I'm like, "Oh my god," like we were just like, "Oh my gosh, the Penguins
Mhm.
doing this." Like it was like, now again, this was the beginning of social media, not where like, hey, I can pull up, Twitter and I can at someone and Drake's gonna respond to me if I keep on, this
Yeah.
was like, this is 12.
Facebook. We had
Yeah,
Facebook. That was it.
that was it. Hey, put the link on Facebook, and it was like, oh my gosh, this is just taking off. And that's become like a tradition now.
So what for people that you have like myself that took what I learned at Plum, it took me a year or two to get from the education side to saying, I really liked communications, I should go down that. What are you
Sure.
telling those students? Because you've had a lot of people come through
Yeah.
those doors that are now, and you mentioned one of those names, Pat McAfee, who probably wasn't in TV to be a TV guy. He was there to fulfill a credit because he wanted to take that as an elective. He's now probably one of the most popular people in America, at least probably the world.
Yeah. And, Nick Moraldo works for him, who I had in class, Anthony DeGilio, those guys, that's that whole Plum connection.
Mm-hmm.
Before, years before him, obviously Steve Fabian, who's at Inside Edition, uh, Pat Muldowney, who he worked for Fox Sports, he worked for ESPN, he's doing stuff now for Spotify out in LA. A lot of people, Missy Matthews, who's beat reporter for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They're all over, which is nice. A lot of Eddie Albert, who's out in Harrisburg,
Mm-hmm.
Emily Muntz, who's did the morning news in Nashville. She's back out in Arizona. There's so many. It's nice. Like, I taught you guys, I teach you guys all the same. And everyone's told me like, we're a step ahead of the game when you go in your freshman year at college. And, it's everyone's different. Like you went to Bethany, Steve went to Allegheny, Pat, didn't want to do this, but he went to West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Emily went to Arizona State. She went and was successful, and that's a big time school. I mean, Walter Cronkite School of Communications,
Yeah.
one of that in Syracuse, like 1 and 2 in the nation. I've sent kids to Syracuse and have done well. My son's at Waynesburg now. They have a great program where Kyle Dawson came out of, and he's the play-by-play guy now for the Washington Wild Things. So there's a lot, whether you're a big fish in a small pond or, you go to that big pond, a lot of students have been successful, and that's awesome. I said, when I retire, I hope someone makes it big, they can maybe buy us a production truck. But
yeah, so we can travel everywhere now and not just
travel everywhere, but it's weird. Like, we broadcast the football games for the last 20, 25 years. We've done, actually, because my daughter's going to be a senior and the girls' soccer teams made it to the Whitfield Championship the last couple of years. It's been nice to follow those along. Plum's okay in sports, but, we've had some seasons where, before Matt Morgan, the football coach, took over, and then he took over, we've lost 20 something. Like Ian Kiss tells me, hey, Mr. Berrott, my junior senior year, I never broadcast a win. That's 22 consecutive losses. I mean, we've had some bad years. And then, then the year of COVID, Carlo, which it was, I mean, we were live streaming some games.
Mm-hmm.
COVID year comes, and we'll never have another year like this. Football team goes undefeated. They lose in the semifinals to Thomas Jefferson. And that's their only loss. The soccer team loses one time to Franklin Regional. They go and they go to the quarters. The girls soccer team loses in the Whitfields, and girls volleyball, they lose in the semifinals. Like all the sports teams, I think combined section play had 1 or 2 losses and there was no fans in the stands except for parents because of COVID. I mean, that's it. And we'll never have another year.
No.
And you know that because you've lived in Plum, we'll never have another year like that ever again in my lifetime, probably.
Well, and it is crazy because you brought up there were years where the football team maybe didn't have the greatest season, but I just can't imagine being at Mustang Stadium and not having, like, we were bad and people were at the games on a Friday night going ballistic like we were the number 1 team in the state. Now, sometimes Woodland Hills and Central Catholic could make that crowd go real quiet real fast, but they were really good.
We've filmed some pretty good people, like, I filmed Rob Gronkowski's senior year, Woodland Hills, Steve Breston. I can still remember Pat
Aaron
McAfee.
Donald.
Yeah, Aaron Donald for Penn Hills, like unblockable.
Yeah.
And I mean, going through 2-3 guys. I can remember Pat McAfee after a penalty. We were at Kiski, their old field. I don't know if you ever played there. Down, they have a field now at the high school, but their old field was in town. Yeah, down below the hill. There's a penalty, and Pat McAfee kicked off from the 50-yard line, kicking the ball towards the road, and through the uprights, over the trees, over the road. And I was like, wow. We're probably going to see him kicking on Saturdays.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I remember I was a little kid. I was younger than Pat, but I remember him doing it at Trinity as well. He did it. He had kicked it, and Trinity had the one end zone has the big net and there's a highway right behind it. And I'm pretty sure he kicked it. And that was, you talk about guys like that and the guys that have come through. I mean, even in basketball and baseball, we've seen there's a lot of talent in that old Big East in Quad A at the time. But we've come to that point of the show. I want to say thank you for taking time. For those of you that just joined us, please go back to the beginning because it makes no sense to join us at the end of the show. There's a lot of good things that Mr. Berrott had to say. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Wisdom, iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. The only one that you can't type DingoTalk into is Instagram. You have to put an underscore in between Dingo and Talk. We're here every Thursday at 10 a.m. I am Carlo Guadagnino. This has been Rick Berrott, TV teacher at Plum Senior High School, and we will see you next week, Chuckleheads.